You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode.
Before we get started on this episode, here's a not-so-short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster nor the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak to a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's mold education courses, such as Mold 101 and the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit, by going to cnccontractorservices.com. Again, check out his mold education courses at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. We have my wife, Cassandra, again. We still aren't getting guests. I shouldn't say getting. I haven't tried.
Well, I mean, it's in the works. You're planning on having guests and bringing a variety of guests. It's just, it takes a lot of time, and you want to be selective about who you bring onto the podcast. And that's good.
When we do it, didn't we say maybe one per quarter?
Per quarter. Yes, that's what we said. For a year.
Yeah, one could be a medical professional, one could be whatever.
Exactly.
So, but anyhow, as I say to you all the time, we appreciate you being on the podcast because you ask questions that I never think of, and every time someone reaches out, they tell me, they're like, tell your wife thank you. So from all of our listeners and myself, we do appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
So today's a good topic, and it's interpreting your black mold test results. How often do I have to look at test results?
All the time. And I really, the question is, how often do people on their own go get mold testing done and then get the results and have no clue what they're looking at?
Exactly. And I wouldn't expect our listeners to know.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, half the time their IEP has no clue.
That's true.
So let's start with one of the first things. Is there a pass or fail?
No. That's a myth.
Why?
Because there is no such thing as a pass for mold or a fail. It's just what are the species, what are the numbers, what are the counts, and then it's customized to each person because people respond differently to mold.
Yeah. So the way I would say it is there are things that would be an automatic fail.
Well, there are red flags that would indicate it's definitely an issue, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I say it would be a fail, it would depend. So let's say I'm doing PRV testing and I'm doing surface sampling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sampling a surface that the remediation company should have used abrasive removal on. So they sanded it, dry ice blasted, baking soda blasted. When I do that tape lift, there should be zero mold on there.
Correct.
So if there's mold on it, that's a fail. If I do an air test, and let's say it's a PRV air test, we're testing inside the containment. If we pick up Stachybotrys, Chaetomium, Fusarium, that's an automatic fail.
So if you pick up toxigenic molds, in other words.
Correct.
Okay, then it's a fail. But what do you mean by, in those situations, fail? Do you mean that tape lift, it failed because that was an area where mold was supposed to be removed, and clearly if the mold is still there, it wasn't fully removed?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Whereas in the other area, if you find toxigenic mold, it's a fail because that means there's still an infestation of mold.
So let's kind of dissect that a little bit deeper. When we do PRV testing, we're going to do air testing inside the containment.
And PRV is post remediation verification, which is PRV testing is designed to what?
To determine if the remediation contractor did what they were supposed to do.
Okay, got it.
And yeah, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. There's a scope of work. Like I could do everything I was supposed to do as a remediator and still fail, but we did everything in our scope of work.
But to your point, PRV just says, did we, in the areas of the home that we were contracted to do the work, did that work get done? Right. Now, if there is in an adjacent room to where work was being done, a mold issue that has not been detected, it could affect the PRV results because it wasn't in the scope of work, but it's a room adjacent to the scope of work.
Yeah. So we'll backtrack again. So with PRV, we're going to do air testing inside the containment.
Okay.
We're going to do an air test outside. You should do an air test outside of the containment.
Okay.
If I do the air test inside this containment and it fails, there could be a number of reasons. Maybe the flood cuts didn't go high enough up the wall. There could be, the register should be closed, but maybe we're getting air from a different area.
Yeah.
How many times do you think I have failed a PRV test? It happens all the time, just to be clear. And
but again, I want to really hit home on sometimes PRV fails because you have a client who you say, I really think we should do all of this work. And the client goes, I can't afford all of this work. I can only afford these 3 rooms.
Exactly.
And so they did not move forward with your recommendation.
Exactly.
And because they did not move forward with your recommendation, because they couldn't afford it, to be fair, it did not handle all of the issues of the PRV failed. Yeah. That's one scenario.
Exactly.
Okay.
And more or less, we're picking up an issue that's not even inside of our containment.
And that's not in the scope of work that was contracted.
And even if it was inside of our containment, you just said it, the client wasn't willing to pay us enough to keep going.
Correct.
So to go back kind of to your original question or what we were talking about, there is not a pass or fail per se, but on the other hand, there are things that we would automatically say failed. So for our listeners, we do not have any definitive standards that say, here's what a passing mold test is.
Okay.
And the reason is there's just so many variables.
Yes.
Like if you go get your glucose, that's what they test you for diabetic, right?
Yes.
There's a certain number. If it's above 7, correct?
Then you're diabetic.
Well, that's not how mold works. If you say, well, you were above 10, let's say for raw count, that's a fail. That doesn't apply in mold.
Well, but that's also because doesn't everybody have a different toxic load? I mean, obviously, if mold testing says there is Stachy there or toxigenic molds, that's got to be
there's
handled.
Red flags. There's flags.
But if there are other things, allergenic molds, well, then now don't you have to make sure as the person who's in the house, you need your medical team. You need to know what is actually affecting you.
Yeah. This is why, once again, mold is so complicated.
Yes.
Even if, and so we have some sample reports in front of us, but even if the Aspergillus and Penicillium is at 6, that's the raw count on the report you're looking at, we don't know. Those are 2 different mold types, but it doesn't tell us the mold species.
Why is it important to know the mold species?
To know if it's toxigenic.
Oh, so Aspergillus or Penicillium as a mold type could also have
a species could be toxigenic. Yep.
That's confusing.
It's very confusing. And so for our listeners, we did this, it's been over a month ago. We went into the deep dive on mold testing. But for traditional testing, I call it ASPEN, ASPPEN. Aspergillus and Penicillium are reported in the same column because they look so similar with a traditional test.
Okay.
And for our listeners, a traditional test is the cheapest way to test, the quickest way to get results. They're only looking at the spores under a microscope.
Okay.
This isn't viable mold growth where you use a petri dish and you leave it out for an hour in the area. You close it up. You wait a week for mold to start growing. And you see all this fuzzy, fluffy stuff. When we're doing traditional testing, we can't even verify if it's viable or non-viable. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So literally, mold testing has to be interpreted by somebody who knows what they're looking at.
Yeah. So let's backtrack to an important part about mold testing. And we talked about it in the deep dive. Mold testing without an inspection, in my opinion, doesn't do you any good.
Makes no sense because mold testing results only give you a part of the picture,
Right.
but you need the full picture
Exactly.
to interpret the mold testing results.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I do want to be clear with our listeners. I'm not saying that you can't identify problems. Let's just say, one of our listeners goes out, has mold testing done. They test 4 or 5 rooms in the house. One of the rooms comes back with really high numbers compared to the outside sample. That same room, we're picking up Fusarium, Chaetomium, Stachybotrys. I can tell the listener, yeah, there's a problem in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
So I don't want to come across like it's pointless to do only testing, but on the other hand, it should be done in conjunction with an inspection.
Yes. And so then if somebody is doing testing on their own, are there particular things that if they're saying, hey, I don't have an IEP or I can't afford an IEP, what kind of things should I be noticing on a report? What would you say?
So we kind of covered that, but what we want to look for is the water damaged molds.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, there's Aspen molds that are associated with water damage.
Okay.
But the main ones are Stachybotrys, which is black mold.
Mm-hmm.
There's Fusarium, and there's Chaetomium.
What color is Fusarium?
I think it's like a brownish color.
And then what color is Chaetomium?
I think the same.
Okay.
I'm obviously not a microbiologist.
So everything is going to be like...
Most molds are darker in color. When you get to the
So they're
white,
not just green.
Yeah, the greens is more of a penicillin.
Okay.
It's penicillium, but yeah, and then the whites are, typically they're going to be like a cladosporium, but that's not my expertise. So for our listeners, I apologize, but I like to do research on stuff that's in my field.
But really, you're saying if you see Stachybotrys or Chaetomium or Fusarium, just know they're red flags in a report.
Yeah, there's a problem.
Okay.
So if we don't pick any of those up and we don't have elevated counts, once again, we're comparing it to the outside sample. We're comparing the amount and the types. If we don't see any red flags, then I'm not saying nothing's wrong because air testing is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when we start going, okay, is there something hidden behind a wall? Do we got to do wall cavity testing? Do we need to do qPCR testing, mycotoxin testing? That's why it's so complex. Like if you look at the report that we just have a sample report right in front of us, what's the count of that cladosporium?
Raw count is 240.
That's pretty high, right?
How do you know what's high for cladosporium?
For the most part, you should be not much higher, in my opinion, than the 20s for a raw count.
Oh, okay, so yes, that is high.
But if you look at the basement, now that cladosporium number, that's the baseline sample. See how high that is?
So what?
But if you go to the basement one, it's only 6.
So what does that mean?
That it's much lower inside the home.
So if the outside of the home is 240, but the basement is 6, does that mean the basement's good?
Well, no, because the reason why is we have to look at the other mold types.
Oh, so really everything isn't like you can't look at any one thing on a mold report in isolation.
No, but look at what the Aspen shows outside. What is it on the
6.
outside? What's it on the inside?
235. So something's going on.
Tells me there's an issue.
But for Stachybotrys, see? Where's Stachybotrys? There's none in the first one.
Because that's the outside.
Oh, and then the inside, it's only 7, so that's not too bad.
No, remember what we just said. What are the red flags?
Oh, so if you see even 1, it's an issue.
If it's only 1, we can maybe question it. But when it's a raw count of 7, there's an issue.
Okay, so really, Stachybotrys, Chaetomium, Fusarium, if you see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as a raw count,
amount.
It's a problem.
Now, sometimes we'll see just 1.
Okay.
And once again, the lab technician, there could have been an error with them. For the most part now, I use Sporesight for our lab. And why do I do that? Because they use AI.
Oh, that's right. They use AI. But Sporesight isn't something that just a lay person can go use. Is that correct?
Not that I know of, but
okay.
But we have options. I'll just say that.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm just wondering, people who go and test by themselves without working with an IEP, what labs are they using to do that? Or are they doing it through their, I don't know.
The only one that I know you can do it as a lay person without certifications, I know for sure you can, is Immunolytics. And it's all Petri dish sampling. Which yeah.
So literally, again, you have, in order to do mold testing, you've got to work with an IEP if you're going to send it to an established, reputable lab.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of goes back to the whole, if you send me just your lab results, I'm not saying it's pointless, but I can look at, and we have several sample reports in front of us. I can look at the report from Mold Lab and say there's something going on.
Well, and I think to be clear, you review Mold Lab results for your clients.
Correct.
You don't have people just randomly email you Mold Lab
No,
results.
it's a service they're going to have to pay for.
I just want to be really clear, because otherwise you will get a ton of people emailing you their lab reports. No, the whole point of this podcast episode is to help people understand why.
What I look at.
What you look at, but also why it is so complicated, and it really does require the intervention of a professional who knows what they're looking at.
Yeah, and so we just told our listeners about the Mold Lab report. We have a report from Nation Labs. Just for our listeners, Mold Lab is a lab down in Texas. Nation Laboratories is a lab in California.
Okay.
If you were to look at the Nation Lab reports, do you see how much different it looks?
They're very different. Like, I still see kind of similar data, but it looks different. And then I'm not sure what it means anyway.
So for Nation Labs, what they'll have is you see the green circle.
Yeah, that means it's okay.
They're not too concerned about it. But then you have a yellow triangle.
Which means pause, there's something up here.
But why do you think that's there if you look at both samples? If you look at both areas.
Oh, because one area was 2 and the other one was 13, and 13 is much higher than 2? No,
one is 2 and one is 1. The 13 is a spore count.
Oh, okay.
So what the lab reports is the mold type, the spore count, or the raw count, and then the spore count.
Okay, so literally what's in question is the spore count for the first.
And it's the same. They just use a multiplier.
Okay.
So if you have a raw count of 1, it's usually 7 for spore. This is 2 and 13. If it was
see.
If it was 3, it would be like 20, 21.
Okay.
But the reason that they're putting the yellow there is because it's higher inside than it is outside.
Okay, that's why. Okay.
Now,
but again,
is that a big deal? Not really.
No, but as a layperson, I would not know how to interpret this report at all.
Yeah, most people can't, and then we have a sample report from Real Time Lab. So these two are traditional testing. This is what we call qPCR testing. Do you see the difference on that?
Oh, yeah.
It's totally different.
Completely different. So that also requires different interpretation, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So
the last sample we have is surface sampling. Mm-hmm. And as you can see on there's a lot of issues.
Oh, yeah, because there's lots of red.
Yes.
Red diamond looking things.
Exactly.
Okay, so then it really says, hey, this is a problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, for our listeners, the example I'm trying to tell you is there's so many variables, and you can't just look at a report and go, oh, we're good because there's no Stachybotrys.
Yeah, no.
Now, when I was brand new, that's kind of how I wasn't that educated in mold. When I first started doing this years and years, decades ago, that's how I started out. Obviously, I've progressed in my knowledge and everything. But for our listeners, don't just assume because there's no Stachy, there's no Chaetomium, no Fusarium that you're good to go.
Absolutely. And, get the support of an IEP who can help you really understand your results. Do you think that there are lots of people who will do mold testing and not give people interpretation?
I don't know. I can't speak for other companies, but I've had a lot of clients that send me reports because they've hired me for consultation. Their IEP said everything's fine, and I look at it and I'm like, I don't know.
Okay. So even who you choose as an IEP will change the interpretation. I mean, like everybody's going to interpret a little differently, and you have to be sure you're with somebody you trust.
So if you think about what I just said, if I was the one interpreting this back in 2004 versus 2025,
it would have been different.
It would have been way different.
Yeah. So you need the experience, you need the expertise, the wisdom, the time.
Yeah.
So what is your call to action for people who are listening to this and they're like, oh my goodness, this is really complicated?
Like I said, don't just assume because there's no Stachy that the air quality is good. There's Aspergillus and Penicillium mold types that are toxigenic.
Absolutely.
And just to be clear for our listeners, we didn't touch on this. Mold is classified in 3 categories. Allergenic, so it's treated with antihistamines. Pathogenic, so it can cause infections, athlete's foot, yeast infections. And then there's toxigenic.
Yes.
Just because Aspergillus and Penicillium are common mold types doesn't mean they don't have species that are not toxigenic.
Correct. So
and I know that's a lot of information.
it is a lot of information, but it really boils down to this. Do mold inspection and mold testing so you get the most comprehensive evaluation of your situation and work with somebody you trust.
And we have, like you said, I have a service on our website.
Yep.
It's a
mold consultation.
very low fee.
VPA.
The lab results.
The lab results. Yes, interpretation. You do the interpretation.
Yeah, and
so
it's really cheap. It's the cheapest service I offer.
It is, and you'll get a lot out of it.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate all you listeners. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If mold in your home has you up at night, wondering if your house is making you sick, it is time for a plan. With a mold consult, in other words, the mold environment assessment and evaluation plan from CNC Contractor Services, you will get a 90-minute strategy call with Steve Worsley, who will review your home environment, answer your toughest questions, and create personalized mold recommendations and next steps just for you. Don't let mold concerns take over. Take control. Visit cnccontractorservices.com to schedule your mold consult today so you can breathe easier in your home tomorrow.